Welcome to the EmpowerNOW podcast. It's your host, Reggie White. We got a special guest on the line with me, my brother, my friend, my Celtics fan partner, Eric Barber. I'm real excited for our episode. We're going to use the time that we got together to just catch up, and got a special episode for you all. We're continuing our It's All About the One series. That one is Jesus Christ. Today's episode is Make the Vision Plain. So I am excited to hear Eric's story. I know most of it, but he's going to share some things that I think is going to be real relevant and for everybody that's listening in. Before we go any further, I'm going to start with a prayer, and then we're going to dive right into me and Eric's discussion. If you're driving, please focus on driving. Get to your destination safe. But you can pray in agreement with us rather than risking it. So encourage you to just listen to the prayer rather than focusing on the prayer rather than driving. Focus on driving. All right, with that, we'll bow. Lord, thank you for the time that I have with my friend Eric on the line here for the podcast. Father, I pray that we can be able to speak in spirit and truth. I pray that the conversation that we have can motivate somebody to do the same thing that Eric's done and how he can be a living testament of what happens when you write the vision down and make it plain. Lord, I thank you for this time. I know this is going to be something that can be a momentum builder, a groundbreak shaker, a thing that can move in the dynamic and change someone's life for the better. So I pray that we can be able to just be able to edify, uplift, encourage, and help to be able to show somebody the path they can take to be able to get to a destination you're looking to get in your will, Father. So I just pray that you can be able to be in this environment, be in the midst, and uplift me and Eric as we speak. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, bro. Well, look, I'm going to give you the floor to introduce yourself to the listeners, man, and then we'll just start talking it up.
All right. I am Eric Barber, but everyone calls me E, so I technically go by E Barber, the artist, on all my social media handles, all one word, all lowercase. I am an artist here in the city of Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been drawing all my life, but I've created my own company, Creative Connect, which celebrated its 1-year anniversary 2 weeks ago.
Whoop! Awesome. So Eric is really moving and shaking things when it comes to terms of his business. And again, I'm excited for him to share his story. So Eric, where I want to start first, man, is I want to start with you telling the listeners kind of, the journey of how you got to Creative Connect. Walk us through this last year, man. How did it all start? How did you get there?
So Creative Connect gotta go back 4 years. So Creative Connect was the LLC and everything was created a year ago, but to get to these steps, it took about 4 years in the making, 4 or 5 years really. Kind of around the time me and my wife, at the time was my girlfriend, we had got together, and it's really been a teamwork effort between the both of us and then God. All three of us kind of came together, and it was kind of like the perfect storm in a sense. So I'm going to take you through this long story, but I swear it's all relevant. But when we got together, my wife is somebody who's always encouraged me from our first date till even before I walked downstairs to do this interview. That's just the spirit of who she is. So there is no E Barber, there is no artist, none of that without her or God, but mostly for him sending that help me. And she, like one a series of our dating, she invested in my business or in my gift by giving me money to get art supplies and all that. And I've always wanted to repay that with just kind of putting my all into something. But fast forward a year later, after of her giving me the money for the art supplies, we were in our 2-bedroom apartment in Finneytown. I don't know if any Cincinnati people are listening. But we were making our way out, and we had our niece being born in a couple weeks. We were getting married in another month, and she went to Columbus to go visit, my sister, who was having our goddaughter at the time. And so she wanted to go up there and make sure she was good and get the nursery together. And she came back home, and she was on fire. My wife was on fire, and she was like, "You're done. Like we're wrapping up Boys and Girls Club. We're gonna get to doing that." And I loved what I did at Boys and Girls Club. So another part of me is youth development, and that's something I'm very passionate about. So I had no reason to leave, but she always was like, "This is not where your journey ends, and art is where you really need to go." And I was just like, I have no idea how we're gonna do that, what it looks like, starting arts, everything in my mind. I was making consistent money and all that. And she came home and we talked about it, and she was just like, "You are meant to own your own business, art business, and we're gonna make it happen." And at first I fought it, because my mom was an entrepreneur, and I saw the what she had to go through, the sacrifice that she had to make to become an entrepreneur. That's a lot of losses, and we haven't even started a family yet. We haven't even haven't started our marriage yet, and that's and one thing that causes the death in marriages and things like that could be money. And I come from humble beginnings in a sense, and so for me, money was like, if we ain't got it, we don't have a good time or things like that. And so my mind, that's why I fought it. I'm still working a job, and so I got on my knees and prayed, and I said, God, if this is the move you're gonna make, I love my job. I love what I do. There's most people leave jobs because they're unhappy or they're not getting respected, and I got that. I was cool. I was advancing. I was, the kids love me. I love the kids, and I was really making an impact. And I was okay if I never did art professionally, because I was investing into the generation behind me. And so I prayed to God and said, God, if this is the move you're gonna make, I really like my job. You're gonna have to change that. Like, you're gonna have to make me want to leave the job. And sure enough, this was in 2019, so you already know what's about to happen. We got married in November of 2019. We bought our first house in February of 2020, or January of 2020. Moved in February 2020, and then we all know the month later we're in the pandemic. In the middle of the pandemic, the next week the world shuts down, and the week after that my grandmother dies. She passes away. And so we just bought this house. Now we're losing people, and it just doesn't seem like this is gonna work, or not right now. And I let it go. And George Floyd happened, and and that kind of affected me a little bit. And of course I protested and did things, but I felt like I had to do more. And going out and protesting was cool, but I felt like I had to do more. And I felt like that was really, as a creative, I had to step in. And I did the Black Lives Matter mural in Cincinnati with other artists throughout the city. And it was the first time I was surrounded by other creatives that do what I do or do what I want to do. And I kind of got in, and it took off after that. And I said, and after all those experiences in 2020, we had finished out the summer, and we were getting ready for the new school year. And my wife looked at me and said, "What we gonna do?" And I said, "This is my last school year. This is my last school year. Still don't have, I'm doing shows around the city. My name is starting to get a little buzz, but not enough to quit no job."
Right.
And the art is not arting just yet. There's still some things that I lacked as far as a portfolio and websites and things like that. But I just knew my time is up. And I feel like God kind of ushering and showing me that my time was up. And so at the end of 2020, we got to the summer of 21. And that's where I did my last summer. And I let my team know, I let my staff know, I let everyone know that I was gone. And I've been out here winging it. I just been out here. Shortly after, leaving Boys and Girls Club and stuff, I put some artwork up here in a local coffee shop called the 86. It's a Christian coffee shop out in Clifton. I was part of the Black History Month Artist of the Month in February, and then that got some news attention. So again, like in the span of a few months, I was on the news a couple times. Trap Art Magazine put me in their magazine, and that's a magazine based in Atlanta. And so there was things starting to move. When I took that leap, I couldn't see the ground, but I knew God told me to jump. And of course, I did. I'm saying this confidently, but I hesitated, and I fought, and I struggled, and I ran. But when I finally did, I took a leap, and I never touched the ground. I never touched the ground. God basically carried me through everything, each transitions and things like that. And so we finally saved up enough money to go through the process of the LLC and getting everything. And the Creative Connect, the K, and the Creative Connect is spelled with a K. And me and my wife were kind of thinking of what are some things that we want to kind of name. And I was like, I always want creative in it, because I want that to be the first and foremost thing. I'm never running from being a creative anymore. This is who I am. So it has to be creative. And I thought of like, what else do I want to do with this? Like I don't want to just be an artist. I just want to be a creative who impacted people. I want to leave a legacy. And so what is my next gift? Is connecting with people. And so I was like, well, there we have it, Creative Connect. And I'm using, my creative outlets to then encourage people. So if you ever go to a class, one of my classes and things like that, you'll see me, being patient. You'll see me taking my time, showing you not just the art technique, but I'm also like asking how you feeling, how's your day, and I'm leaving you in memories and things like that. So that's kind of how we got started to where we at today. Basically, I just took a leap, from the encouragement from my wife. I took a leap, and man, I thank God that I listened, because my life has changed dramatically in these last 4 years. Being married, being a follower of Christ, and also now being an entrepreneur, and now starting to become a successful entrepreneur, and then growing to be one of the top artists in the city has been a very humbling experience. But I can give nothing but praise to God, because it wasn't Eric, it wasn't E who did it. It was God, and God used E to do it.
Wow, man. Wow. Wow.
Well, I told you I could ramble, bro.
No, bro. I don't think it was a ramble. I think every word you uttered and spoke, bro, somebody needed to hear every moment of that. And I want to just capture a few things you were saying, then I'll move to the next part I'll ask. But for listeners, what Eric just said was so powerful. You just heard him say he was not running from who he was ever again. And then, as he was talking, it's so powerful because he was speaking scripture without even realizing he was speaking scripture. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. Like he just said, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing today if it wasn't for his wife, Bree. It's just so powerful. And I love hearing people that deserve the story that they live, like you, to be able to speak that like that, bro. Because I know all the things this man has been through over these past few years. So I know it hasn't been easy to get there. So I just love it, bro. I love it.
I mean, even, and I'm gonna talk just real quick.
Yeah.
Even our friendship and even how we became friends was nothing but God. And I can tell you now, after some years had passed, I was at my bachelor party. And it was tamed. All right. It was tamed. Archery, dodgeball. Okay. Archery, dodgeball. And I was talking to my brother about the Celtics, and I'm a diehard Celtics fan. Paul Pierce is my favorite player of all time. And I can argue with anybody about it, and we can talk about it in the comments. But I was talking to my brother about it, and I seen this guy just kind of perk up when we talk about the Celtics, and he's just looking, and I can kind of look around. He's by himself. And I'm just kind of like, man, what is he doing? Because it's in the room, it's a group of black people and it's another group of not black people. And he was just in the middle. So I'm like, who he with? And so I was like, okay. And while we're talking, he's really listening intently to me and my brother talk about the Celtics. And both of us are real big Celtics fan. And I just felt like God just kind of showed me you, bro. And I was just like, and so honestly, on purpose, I kept talking about the Celtics just to get you to reel you in. And I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I listened to God, because I got a brother, and I'm thankful for what we've kind of come together and what we've kind of done. You came through at a time for us that was helpful, and I hope it's the same on our end. Yeah, but yeah, that's my quick little story about that.
Wow, yeah, bro, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, there's no coincidences in life, listeners. Like Eric, like he's saying, like it really was that crazy. Like I was at the place just because I was looking for someone to live. We was getting ready to move from North Carolina, and he was talking about the Celtics. I'm a big Celtics fan, for those that don't know, listeners. And it just kind of took it there from there. We just kind of hit it off. And next thing you know, as we were exiting 2019, we started hanging out all those couple of years out. So we've done like basketball, all type of stuff over the years, man. It's crazy. So let me read this scripture. Then I'm going to ask Eric another thing. And we're going to reveal something to the listeners that you guys don't know, that it's going to be cool. And then we'll have some more dialogue. But the subtext from this Bible Gateway says, the just live by faith. And I'm coming from Habakkuk 2, verses 2 through 3. And it says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak, and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." I think that's real powerful, because, again, you heard it from kind of Eric's perspective. But, Eric, I want you to give us some perspective, talk to me about what you've seen in your own life, about when you write the vision and then you kind of go run after it after you make it plain. Talk to us about that, man. What does that look like in your life?
Yeah, so I kind of glossed over that as I was telling the story because, like I said, in our 4 years, 4 years in November, and me and B have gone through a lot. But we started writing things down every single January, and that came from me reading books like Circle Maker and All In by Mark Batterson. Those really shaped my prayer life. In Circle Maker, basically just I'm gonna simplify it very much, but I encourage every believer to read it because it's going to change the way you pray. It's going to change the way you pray. You pray with confidence, boldly. You then get to kind of declare things, and that's kind of where I'm at now. But we, when we got together, me and my wife were talking about how we want to live our lives. I grew up in church. My wife is a believer, but she didn't go to church every Sunday. I was a deacon's kid and deaconess kid, and I was in every ministry and all that. So I knew the game and things like that. And so I knew we needed God, and I knew that if I'm going to lead, that I have to lead with God. And so I started incorporating that into in our marriage. I did it in my single life. I started writing circles around the qualities I wanted in a wife, and then she showed up. So I was like, this works. The job I wanted, I circled it. I kept every day I prayed, I kept circling it. Another good one for those that don't want to read the books, but you want to watch the movies, War Room. War Room has the same principles that do that, and we do that. And so it was the start of 2019, the very start of 2019. So we had already gone through our first date in October of 18. Made her my girlfriend in November of 18, and I bought her ring in December of 18.
Wow.
Yeah. And so in January, we talked about like casting out vision. And me and my wife are severe planners. Mostly my wife, like I'll throw a vision out, but my wife can really like, all right, if you want to get to A, this how B, C, D gonna get to. Mm-hmm. And so we started writing down, we have 4 areas in our life that we always look at, and that's our marriage, our family, our time, and our finances. And so we broke them down into 4 groups. And so then in all those 4 groups, we then have individual goals and then marriage goals. And we write down those goals. And so our very first list, I couldn't find them because I was going to show everybody. But if I do find them, I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. And you can let your listeners look at it because we're not ashamed, and everyone has came to fruition. Wow. We were both working jobs. We were making about, we were making decent money together, but we knew we wanted more. We knew we needed more to support a family, to be entrepreneurs. We needed it. So we started doing that. And so we wrote down things like, B was in HR. So she wanted level up in HR. She wanted to be in a place where she can do that. So she started writing down some serious things like, I want 6 figures. I want this. I want to be able to support a family on this. I want to be able to, like, when I do have a family and a baby, I want them to be like, have the certain healthcare benefits, things like that. I want to grow in my faith with God. I'm writing God, like, I want to be a creative, but like, show me how I do that. Like, I don't really know how to do that. I don't want to keep working 9 to 5s and things like that. So we wrote all that stuff down. We wanted a house in the next 2 years, all that. We wrote all that stuff down. And then throughout 2019, God did it. So by the time we got to 2020, like I told you, at 2020, on February 2020, we were moving in to our house that we were a year and a half ahead of. Wow. We were, B had just switched from job, and the job is now like a better fit for her. I'm starting to plan my exit, but art is on the rise. Like before when I wrote it down, I was just doing art in my living room. When we got to 2020, I have an art desk, I have this, and now I have getting paid off of doing, paint parties. I'm getting paid off doing little murals. I'm getting paid off, like, I'm starting to see the life kind of, manifest of what I did. And so I feel like God put those seeds in our hearts, and we faithfully prayed over them. Every day, no. But the theme and the intention was always there. We may have slipped and things like that, and that's human nature. But the vision, we stuck to the vision, and we wrote those things down. So every single January, me and my wife get together and we plan out our year, and we start getting a little bit more dangerous as we start to declare some things. And when I find the old ones, because we did a move last year, so we're finally in our forever home now. that was another thing we prayed on. So, yeah, where we at now is where we at. We felt like we lived 4 lifetimes, but when we wrote things down and we prayed on God and we followed God and was intentional, we had to say no to things. We had to say no to people. Yeah. We had to cut down on some things. We had to be good stewards of the money that we already had. If we wanted more, we had to do better with less. And that was another thing that we had to kind of focus and work on. We had to focus on our marriage. Our marriage is a ministry. Me and my wife are not lost on that. We know that we are examples in some way. We don't like to be out in the front a lot, but we do love to kind of talk about our marriage, and our marriage changed our lives because we follow God and we kept God in the mix.
Yeah, man. Wow, bro. I'm getting stuff out of this too, listeners. By the way, I'm being blown away by this, brother. So, everything you said right there, man, I think is spot on too. Like, a life without Christ is not a life worth living, and you are hearing vision and you're hearing purpose and you're hearing scripture living through his life. It's phenomenal. But I love what you said there, bro, about how you guys spend January to be intentional about what the year is going to bring. And then that intentionality led to their house in 2020 when they were hoping for 2 years later. So for listeners, let's listen to this. Sometimes, man, Christ is going to reward you for being a great steward or being obedient when he's calling you to put his word into practice, and he won't let his word return void. He is a testament to that, man. That's awesome.
I tell you, if he put it on your heart, it's a promise.
Yeah.
It is. And just like with any type of relationships, if you have a promise or, between bros and you have an expectation of, I'm going to pick you up at 7:30, that's a promise. It's already agreed upon by both parties, and action has to be executed. So if God puts something on your heart, that's a promise from the man himself who created existence in 6 days. Honor that. Like, live as best holy life as you can, but also too, if things ain't going, the way you want it, hey, God, you promised this.
Right.
This is a relationship. Requires a give and back, a back and forth. I think we tend to kind of stop and freeze because it's like, it's God. And God's like, no, I want the emotions. I want, the back and forth. I want the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think relationship is the whole antithesis of Christianity, but just nothing but relationships.
Yeah, spot on. Shout out to season 1. Go listen to relationships. What E's talking about is spot on to what we talked about back then.
Definitely did me well.
Oh, appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Well, look, that's a fantastic transition, E, when you talked about when God put something on your heart. So listeners, just so you know, in 2023, I was going through like my own journey of like counseling, therapy, different things. And I'll never forget, like after one of those sessions, I was just like in quiet time. And then clear as day, God spoke a bunch of different things to me. I'm not going to reveal all of the stuff he spoke, but here's the one piece I will reveal. One of those things he told me, he said, reach out to your friend Eric Barber and have him create the logo for your podcast. And I was like, okay, if that's what you're telling me to do, that's what I'm going to do. And I sat on it for a little while, not a long time, not acting, but what I mean by that is I kind of internalized it. And I was like, okay. And I reached out, I'll never forget, I reached out to E and I was like, bro, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want it to be. These are the colors. This is what I'm thinking. And I trusted him. I just said, hey, this is what the name of the podcast is going to be. EmpowerNOW. Go with it. And he was a phenomenal brother of going out and going and creating that logo. And that's the logo we're using today here in the podcast. So, E, I would love you to tell the listeners that whole process from your end when I reached out and how it all came to be.
For sure. So, yeah, when you reached out, I was extremely honored. Anytime that any of my friends reach out to me, and invest in my business for their business, this is the whole reason why I got into this. You see, big companies and stuff like that take these on and they don't handle it with the type of intentionality and things like that. But that's a topic for another day. But I was just honored to have any of my friends that, trusted me enough to let me have their vision. So, of course, I wrote down all the notes and the things that he wanted. And then when I finally got ready to create it, I prayed. So one thing that I feel about being a creative is that's the closest I get to communing with God in a sense. It's almost like take your son to work day in a sense. When I create a blank canvas or anything like that, I'm bringing something to life, or I'm bringing something that was in your head, and I'm making it a real thing in the real world. It's the closest I can get to kind of, I won't say being in God's shoes, but just kind of feeling like this is how this felt. So anytime I create for clients, I always pray over, all right, God, lead me And so, like, as we were praying before the podcast, I always tell God to remove E and then replace E with you. And so when I did it, there's a different type of variations when I go through my process. But the first thing, I go to logos and things like that. Anytime they ask me to do one, I always my wife hates me for it, but I'm very literal. So when he said empower now, I thought of what are some things that are empowering to us. And of course, being Black, I thought of the fist up. And so that, I don't want to get too political. So then two, I don't like to steal other people's ideas. So then I was like, but I still like the empowerment of the fist. So instead of doing it like vertical, I made it horizontal. And so kind of made it more relational. That from what the vision that you gave me and what it seemed like to me was that you wanted to connect people horizontally. Mm-hmm. And then eventually vertical. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, that's why I did the fist bump. Originally I had like the strong arm thing with the Envision Now and all that stuff. I'll send that too. That's another thing too. I keep all of the works, the notes.
Wow.
You'll see the process, and that's another thing I'll send out to you all too. I didn't even think about pulling that stuff out, but I will send that stuff to you and see the process of how I got to where I got to. But yeah, the fist was the most powerful thing to me. I felt like, when we're in passing, especially now with COVID, we did the fist bump, elbow bump, but it was just like I just wanted to connect, and I felt like the fist with the headphones, and then the battery font was your idea, which I wasn't even thinking of, and I just ran with it. I actually kind of want to do something different a little bit if we want to talk about rebranding in the next couple of years or so.
Yeah, 100%.
We're going to cook up some other stuff. I'll give you some variations of that. It was just that. So the font I did by myself. I drew the font. Normally you'll just type it, and I tried typing it out on Photoshop, and it just didn't hit the way I wanted it to, so I had to do it myself. So that was kind of the tedious part of the design. But I loved how it came out. And so anytime I create for my clients, I'm always nervous. Always. Like, I'll be in my mode creating, and I'm comfortable, confident, and I'm cool. But it's different because, like, they have to like it. They have to love it. And I'm following God on this one. So, like, all right, God, like, this is my brother who is a man of God, and I know what he's using this for, and I want even the logo to be intentional. Mm-hmm. So God, you have to walk me through this. So it was definitely a different experience to be in a space and really have God put his hand over my hand and create. And so I expected revisions. I expected to be like, nah, bro, this ain't it. All that. And when you came back and said that you loved it, man, it really lifted my heart. And it was another confirmation of like, man, I really do be hearing God, and I really do commune and be in relationship with God. It was beautiful. So all in all, as I know I've said it in private, but I'll let the world know, thank you. And I've been honored to work on this project and to do life with you.
Yeah, man, your drawing, literal, everything that you drew, it was the beginning of a journey, bro, that you had no idea was coming. And I just think it's really awesome because somebody from this logo will remember, the journey that they've gone through by listening to some of these episodes. And we're still growing right now. But I said this before, listeners, and I'm going to say it again. I have no doubts in my mind. Like, it may take 5-10 years. This is going to be something special. Somebody's going to say, man, I started that business because of that podcast. My life changed because of what those guys were talking about. So I'm just grateful, E, that you took the time to make the vision plain, bro, and to make the logo for us, man. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah. So look, the next thing I want, if it's okay, E, I want to give a little bit of a testimony in your life too, because I think everything you're sharing, I think somebody needs to hear again, like I told you before we started recording, every piece of the puzzle here. So I would love you, bro, to just be transparent with the listeners about how you and your wife, like you said, you were planning. You also were trusting God for, an addition to the family, and that's coming soon, right?
Yeah. So I don't know when this is going to air. Because it's not public knowledge just yet, but yes. So in 2020, so 2020 was like the year we felt invincible. We got the house on the first try. We got, we had some losses. Of course, my grandmother had passed and things like that. And So 2020 came around and we were celebrating our first anniversary. And she like ran upstairs and, well, not ran upstairs. She came up and presented me with my present, which was, a positive test. And I was elated, but then I was like, oh snap, I'm about to be somebody's dad. And I still haven't wrapped my mind around marriage and being a husband just yet. Or not just yet, but I'm still kind of, getting a handle on that. So I was definitely feeling on it, but it was more so excitement. And we were going through the process of things, and that's really like put the battery in my back to be like, oh yeah, this is definitely coming to an end. I have to. I don't want to be, my kids and be an employee. Nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong. But my path had to be entrepreneurship. It had to be outside the bounds of 9 to 5 because that's what God had me to do, my ministry and things like that.
Right.
So I knew that's where I had to be. And with this baby coming, I had a deadline. I got to put some concrete together to do this. And so it kind of became a race. And so 6 weeks later not 6 weeks, we went to our appointment. I think we were a little early, and they definitely confirmed we were pregnant. And then right after that, we had to meet them again another 2 weeks. So we went for the 2-week appointment, and we went, and I was working. We both were working, so we had took some time off. Mind you, in the middle of a pandemic, or not in the middle of a pandemic, but we're in the middle of everybody getting back to school and things like that. So we were doing social distancing, virtual learning. So like that's a whole nother thing we had to learn at the time. So I'm leaving work early, to go to our appointment. I'm hyped, I'm excited, nervous, everything. And we get in there, and it was supposed to be the ultrasound, and they couldn't hear anything. And the room was dark and everything. We couldn't hear anything, and so I don't want to be disrespectful to their title. The lady that was working the ultrasound, she was like, I gotta step out, So I'm a person that I'm a glass half empty person. I know you can't be a Christian, be a half glass empty person, but that was just my mindset. So I'm instantly thinking, this is the worst. I gotta prepare that this baby's not alive. And now that I've dealt with it, or just kind of made it real, now I have to attend to my wife, who is a newish believer when it comes to situations like this.
Right.
And so we're in silence, we're not speaking. I'm not looking, I can't look at her. I'm still like looking down or looking straight ahead. I'm trying to like figure out, all right, if this goes south, what am I going to do? Am I going to console her? Am I going like, what if, she's going to have questions. What are my answers as the pastor of my house? How do I counsel my wife who is hurting? And so I'm already thinking of scenarios, questions, and things like that. So then so our doctor comes in, Dr. Young. Shout out to Dr. Young. She's an amazing person that's been a part of our journey. And she came in and she did it. She did everything right. Just how the eye contact, the sincerity, the empathy, all that. Like it was just like whatever. It was just like God was like, all right, you about to go in there with my kids, and this is what I need you to do to make them feel something.
Right.
And she definitely confirmed that we had lost the baby. There is no explanation to why, which was kind of like a good news thing, but also like even bad, because if there's no evidence or there's nothing that leads to it, then really what was the cause?
Right.
I left. We had drove separately, obviously, because we both went to work, and I hugged her, told her I love her. You didn't do anything wrong. She's crying. I didn't cry. Because I, in my mind, I was like, I gotta be the rock.
Yeah.
So we deal with everything, and then we leave. I walk her to her car, and I gotta get on the elevator to get to my car. And as soon as the elevator door closed, I punched the wall. And that was something that, in my childhood, or just kind of when I get that angry, I punch things. Or I punch inanimate objects like walls or things like that. And so I punched the wall, and I was like, all right, I got that out. I get in the car and I sit in the car and I realize like I'm not a father. And I grab the steering wheel with both hands and I scream as loud as I can, as loud as they would let me. I sobbed in the car, cried hysterically. Then I wiped my face and then I tried to go to work. And my boss, who was like a mentor at the time, still is a person I look for guidance on things. I let him know what happened and he refused to let me in the building. He was just like, go home. So shout out to Brent Martin, man. He's a man of God as well. Yeah. And he's been a very great comfort to me and my wife as we journeyed through things. The Martin family is a very beautiful family. And so he was like, take today and I'll let you take the rest of the week if you want, but you do not work today. And I was like, bet. And I took the week and I got B in the car. I got home. We watched some TV and we didn't really talk much. We watched like a lot of comedy movies so we can laugh and things. Mm-hmm. And I finally got her in bed. And then I finally got her in bed and I went downstairs to play 2K. And that helps me clear my mind. And I remember just getting into the kitchen because I was grabbing a snack and I just broke down again on the kitchen floor and just let it out. I couldn't let my wife see me do that because I felt like I had to be the example of faith and the example of being positive. And so, so that was the first time. And we experienced 2 more losses with the last one happening last August. Each time, same thing. At 6 weeks, no explanation. And each time I kind of got a little callous to it where I didn't cry as much. But after the third one, we both looked at each other and we're like, God promised this. And we got it, we thought about adopting, we thought about IVF, we thought about all the other different types of options. We have a plethora of nieces and nephews. We have 2 godchildren, we have a couple godchildren. We knew that we could kind of always, kind of fall back on one of them. But I'm competitive. And I don't know. It was just something like God, I felt like doing these other routes would admit to giving up. Yeah. And I felt like I was admitting or just kind of saying that these miscarriages were too big for the God that I served. And he brought me through homelessness. He brought me through so much stuff, with drugs. He just brought me through so much things that I shouldn't have been involved in. And he finally got me to a safe space, being married and being secure. There's no way he was going to let me drop or leave me forsaken at this moment. I just had to believe a little bit longer. And so we're still praising, honoring God on that. And so we're still holding to God for that promise. And so God gonna fulfill that promise. I'm calling it just like Paul Pierce called it to out here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
He's going to do it.
Yeah.
Because the God I serve always honored his promises. Always. And he's honored every single one since we've been writing them down. And we wrote down baby last year. January. I'm sorry. We wrote down baby. Not adoption, not IVF, not that. God, you're going to take us full term. And do not give us another positive test until we are ready. Until you're ready to deliver that promise, don't give us nothing. So we're just still willing and waiting.
Man, bro, I just got to applaud you and just say I really appreciate your obedience, bro. Because I'm telling you, Eric, I'm telling you, somebody needs to hear this. Somebody is going through a whole bunch of different things you're talking about. It could be multiple different people going through different avenues. But everything you're sharing right now is going to be a revolution and something that can really open up the perspective of, man, here's what happens when I hold on to this thing called faith. So I don't know about you listeners, but that's blessing me. I'm going to try my best to share a story really quick, too, because I want to bring home perspective because I'm on the other side of the spectrum for E. But everything he's saying, man, is showing what happens when we hold out on this faith. And we, just like he said, he promised this. I prayed for this. And you're not going to let your word return to me void. Like, he can't leave his word void. So God's coming after his word. And he does not Our God can't do two things. He cannot lie and he cannot fail. And you have heard that for these almost 30 plus minutes of E's story of how he's been able to overcome and see things come to fruition. And I also want to acknowledge that all of the things that he's seeing from the wins, he had to go through certain circumstances in his life before he could appreciate those wins. So this brother right here, like you heard him say, he's gone through so much. And God is showing through, and he's showing through what happens when somebody can be trusted. And like you heard E say, like he was a good steward of his finance. He was doing different things, and he had to be able to first demonstrate before he was able to show God that he was ready. And E's ready, and E's in his season right now. And I'm just so happy to see it, man. Because again, this has been years in the making, but these last 2 years, I have seen the story live, right? So it's just really cool to hear it over the podcast, man. So I'm gonna just give a little testimony from my end too, real quick. Listeners, just to give some perspective, if you've listened, you know I have a son. My son is now 4. His name is Ryan Joshua White. I'm going to walk you guys back to 2019 real quick. So me and my wife found out that she was pregnant in February 2019. We was excited, did our thing, went to Jamaica, different things. But as we were getting closer, it was around the late June timeframe. They was like, hey, we went through the ultrasound. Something looks a little off, but we'll come back and look at it in a couple of weeks. So, we didn't think nothing of it. We said, okay, we'll come back. I will never forget because we had the ultrasound appointment. They saw it and they said, hey, we got to act right here, right now. And that was like mid-July of 2019. And I remember leaving work. I remember me and my wife driving to the hospital. And then as we were driving to the hospital, I'll never forget, we had a doctor who didn't have good bedside manner, like you heard from E, who came up to me and my wife, and he kind of didn't care, kicked his feet up and was like, yeah, your son has a 15% chance of living, and then walked out the room, gave us that information, told us that. And I'll never forget how in the moment, how everything was going down, my mom and Jalea's mom took time to drive 8 hours down the road to North Carolina in Asheville. And I remember the night before, because they was going to do the surgery, the C-section, emergency C-section to get my son out. I remember we was around each other praying. And I remember like not knowing what to say or what to feel. But I remember praying in the moment saying, God, whatever your will is, it be done. And again, in that moment, as I'm praying that too, transparently, everybody, I didn't think my son was going to be around. I didn't think he was going to be there. So like hearing E's story now though, like having the full perspective really puts that moment in perspective for me, because I was going through and worked up and upset about a 15% chance, but E and others would have killed for a moment to have a guarantee or, any type of chance for a son or a daughter. So like, flash forward, the C-section goes well. He comes out. It was instant. He was fine. And he was in an incubator and in the NICU and in the hospital for a long time. So from July 2019 until June of 2020, my son's in the hospital. And then the pandemic happens and all these different things. And he needs a ventilator and all these different things. I'm not going to belabor it, but we go through all of that journey. But I'm saying all that to say that was for one son. And I'll never forget, I told my friends I was growing up, I always want a son. If I would have known what it took to have a son, I think I would have had a different perspective that I have now. But I say all that to say that my son was a blessing. And there's some folk that never get to have a child. So I think what E's saying is so powerful. And again, talking about this whole writing down the vision, making it plain, like make sure you understand the weight of what you're asking for costs. So when you say, hey, I'm gonna write this down, this is what I want, Lord, do it, Lord. When he does it, like there's responsibility and a weight that comes with that. So you got to really make sure you appreciate it. Go ahead, my bad, bro.
I'm going to add just a little bit and I'll let you kind of go on from that. But that's perfect. That's exactly right. And that's what kind of led to our prayers. Each loss I recognize as a leader, and also just the pastor of our household, there were things that I had to learn before this baby come. There was stuff that I had to create boundaries with family. There was boundaries I had to create that if I was going to have a child and it was just going to be like I do everything else in life, that I'm giving it to God, I have to make sure that I have the capacity to handle that level of a gift, that level of a blessing. So let's basically, if I'm asking for Ferrari and I'm like, God, give me a Ferrari. And if I check my bank account, there's $50 in there, my finances don't match up to the blessing that I'm asking for.
Right.
So when things are not happening, there was times that me and my wife had to go back these last 3 years to say, all right, God, this didn't happen the way we wanted it to. What are some things that we have to work on? And we have to be and that's the thing about one of the keys to me and my wife's success in our marriage. We are very, very over-communicative, very vulnerable when we communicate. We've been doing it and since we were dating. We do it to this day. Before I came down here, we had an intimate moment of just sharing some vulnerable things. And we had to be vulnerable. We had to look ourselves in the mirror. We had to look each other in the mirror. Or I had to tell my wife, like, there were some things that you lacked on. And my wife had to look at me and said, there are some things that you lacked on. And so, like, I had to get myself ready. So, like, even before we could get this, the blessing or the promise, we got to make sure that we can handle it. So we had to switch our prayer up. So it went from just, all right, God, we want to have a baby. Like, all right, God, when we're ready, you give us a baby. And that's what switched up our prayer. We had to say, like, don't give us a positive test. Don't give us no false hope. Don't give us nothing. Don't give us anything until it's the real deal. And then it was like, we won't accept anything unless it's real. And I'll let y'all know how that goes. And,
Yeah, man. Wow. Yeah. And I want to double click on what he was just saying, because he said it multiple times now. There's a lot of men listeners for this podcast, and even for the women, I'll come back to you in a minute. But for the men that's listening, that's looking to be a husband or looking to be a head over household, you heard E say, as the pastor of my household. So as the pastor of your household, there is a level of responsibility, a level of work ethic, a level of maturity that has to come. And man, I'm living at myself, where I have learned what it means to truly be a husband, what it truly means to provide and to lead. And man, it's not easy. So for the men that's listening, or the young men that's listening, or somebody that's looking to go do this, make sure you find somebody that you can trust, that can show you the right way to do it. There are so many pretenders out here. There's so many of folks that are misguided. And I encourage you to find somebody that can truly show you. But if you're looking for the right answer every time, you got to go to the Almighty himself. You got to pray and have him give you the direction. Just like you heard E say of, give me the wisdom to handle this. Give me the understanding. When I'm ready, let this happen. Like your intentionality behind that prayer has to change. Yeah. So E, I want to let you give some final thoughts. I'll give some final thoughts, and that's been a wrap. But I've really enjoyed this story, bro. It's motivating me.
Yeah. Man. I'll say, when you're writing down this vision, one, go before God. That whatever you have, does it give you peace or does it give you chaos or animosity? If it gives you peace, it's God. If it gives you anything other than that, it's not. So don't start writing things down because of things that what you deserve. I wrote things down prepared to be changed, moved in, transformed.
Wow.
So when you're ready to take this step, you gotta understand that you are giving up control of your life. I gave up control, but like it says in His Word, that He gives the desires of your heart, which means that your heart has to align with God's values. And once those things align, then whatever you want, God wants it too, and whatever God wants, you want it too. Why? Because the desires of your heart and God's will has already lined up. You got to do that, and that's what I had to do. That's what we had to do. So when you write that stuff down, make sure you're praying about it. Make sure it gives you peace. Understand that this is not a how-to guide to get a dub or get a win or get some blessings. This is a how-to guide to, like, take your hand off the steering wheel and sit your butt in the passenger seat. This is what this looks like. And once I relinquish control and let God put me through some things. I had COVID and pneumonia in the same time, and I was laid up in the hospital bed. And a hospital bed for a week, and I was on bed rest for the rest of the month. That was back in 21. It changed my life, and I had to relinquish control. And that was when I really, really relinquished control. Like, all right, God, I can't control this no more.
Yeah.
When you do that, you are becoming nothing but a slave or a servant to the Almighty, and you got to be okay with that. If you want change, you got to do something you've never done before. Wow. And most of us Christians ain't never fully relinquished control of our lives solely to God.
Wow, man. Wow. Man, I'm so glad. I'm so glad I was obedient to put you on this episode, bro. This has been everything and more. Just really quick that I want to add to what he was saying. Too much is given, much is required. So to whom much is given, much is required. And I think, like, what you've heard from this brother today is spot on of what he's talking about. But I think even for those that's listening, it doesn't matter what age you are, if you're looking for more, there is a level of responsibility that comes with that. So again, when you're writing down this vision, like, again, he doesn't return to his word void. When you're ready, he's going to answer, and he's going to do more than you can expect. So, because a lot of times, if we knew the call that God had on our life or what he was going to have us to go do, and we knew every little detail like we say we know, we would run to the other door. So
I'm telling you, I'll still be at Boys and Girls Club, bro. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
If I knew all of what was going to go into it, I probably still would have my 9 to 5 because there's no way I would have mentally been ready to prepare myself for half of the stuff that we've gone through as a married couple, or then just individually as a leader. Oh my goodness, that's a conversation for another day.
Nah, bro, it's all spot on. And again, everything you're saying, I think somebody needs to hear. And just to kind of keep going, what I was talking about, this responsibility and this, this answering the call and what it means to heavy is the crown, right? I just think it's really important that we understand that we can't do this thing alone too. So yes, there's going to be responsibility. There's going to be things that he's trusting us with, but who in that vision is a part of your community? Who in that vision are the people that you can instill and trust and that can help hold you accountable and help uplift you? You heard it from E, it was his wife B. And for you, who does that person look like? And again, I'm not saying everybody's going to be married. I'm not saying everybody's story is going to be the same. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is understand that in order to get to certain avenues and for certain windows and doors to be open, there's got to be a certain person that's with you or somebody that's helped pulling you up. Are you running from that opportunity? Are you being careful about the counsel you keep or who's in your life? Are there some people you need to walk away from? Like all of that, man, is just so real. And I'm just here to tell you that even as I've been going through this journey of doing this podcast, there's just times and places for everything. You got to know when it's your time. And you also got to know when it's time to be patient and wait. So for those that's in the waiting season, or for those that are getting ready to go through the breakthrough, Christ has got to be at the center of it. So that's what I would just end with. Too much is given, much is required, but it's important that you understand that the time that it takes to get there and what it's going to take to do that body of work, he's got to be behind you every step of the way. So that's where I'll end for the episode today.
Facts.
Yeah, man. Well, look, bro, I really appreciate it, man. I can't stress it enough. I just really think this is going to be something that can really shape, and even the level of transparency you gave, man, I just appreciate you being obedient and sharing all that, brother.
I appreciate it. And there's more to the story. Like I said, I left out a lot of stuff. Like I said, being in the hospital and all that. That's another topic for another day. But yeah, if your listeners or anybody or God want me to come back, I'll come back whenever y'all need me to. Or want me to or whatever, because I'm just a servant.
Yeah, man.
But I'm honored to be a part of this. I'm honored to be in your life. I'm honored to have met you, and I appreciate you, bro, for everything.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Well, look, man, where I'll end is this, listeners. That's a wrap for episode 3. Please continue to check us out here on season 2. But the same question we ask every episode that I'll ask in today is, in this moment, right here, right now, who else can you empower? How can you empower somebody else right now? With that, I encourage you guys to share this. Share this out. This is going to be on many platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But I encourage you to share this because somebody needs to hear this, man. So I'm hoping you guys can help do that part of sharing this as you listen. So that's where we'll end. Until next time, everybody.